Hello, dear friends. What is it about that I object? We have been deceived so many times that it is fashionable to go against everything, like a rebellious and foolish child. But that is not objective, because not everything is a lie and not everything is true. But everything is very mixed up in this world, and you have to be very careful to separate the wheat from the chaff. Opinion piece. The Great Apostasy. Perennial Philosophy. Confusion of ideas. The world upside down. The end times. The father of lies. Abandonment of Truth. Illumination of consciousness. All the prophets saw it. Reversal of moral values. Loss of good manners. The art of turning the tables on others. A collapse of lifestyles is coming. Holiness transcends all religions. The paths to the absolute are infinite. In quotes, Jesus was the Buddhist monk according to BBC. Truth is a diamond with many faces. Let's start. An apostasy is an abandonment of truth, not the formal renunciation of a political party or an artificial, dogmatic, or manipulated religious institution. It would be a loss of the good customs of common law or natural law, and a materialistic disregard of the most valuable spiritual traditions of humankind preserved in the East. This loss resulted in the formation of many doctrines of contradictory teachings. The Bible indicates that there would be a great apostasy at the end of time. The great apostasy is mentioned in Thessalonians. The end times include the rejection of divine revelation and a further fall of an already fallen world. All the prophets foresaw this great apostasy. Isaiah has a message that relates to our day. He speaks of the end times when the people will reject their Creator as their only source of provision. Over the centuries, political leaders have led many believers into apostasy. They accomplish this through persecution or simply by diverting the devotion of the people. Materialistic apostate people do not long for the divine, but for the world, the devil and the flesh, power, prestige and money. They build, they buy, they sell, they go on in their dreams as if it will never end, but there comes a collapse of lifestyles. They do not want a message that disturbs their world. They especially reject the message of holiness. They go after entertainment and ridicule the mystics. They belittle them with a condescending smile, as if sparing their lives. The last days. Jesus warned his disciples about the last days in Matthew 24:10-12. In quotes, many will stumble then, and will betray one another, and will hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and deceive many, and the love of many will grow cold because of the increase of wickedness. The Great Apostasy is a term used among Christian followers of Restorationism, especially Mormons and Adventists, among others. It is known as the period when the Christian tradition would have ceased to follow the same doctrines, practices, and ordinances of the early Christians, who believed in reincarnation, because the alteration of doctrine and the introduction of pagan beliefs and practices influenced by Greek and Roman cultures. Unaffiliated or disaffiliation is a term used to refer to people who are not included in a particular religion, But this term doesn't define anything, because there are many spiritual people who do not believe in any religion, and in turn believe in the path of truth that all religions have. Today, apostasy is claimed by citizens as a right, as an integral part of the right to freedom of conscience. But apostasy from Islam is condemned with the death penalty. These are the characteristics of the great end-time apostasy. If this message bothers you, you had better search your heart, for the day of redemption is at hand. The reign of ego, pride, and ruthless ambition will come down, and solidarity and spirituality will be reborn at all levels. It will be a utopia made real, not the dystopia they want to impose on us. The world upside down. We are in an upside down world, because the tables have been turned. What used to be bad is now good, and vice versa. White is black and black is white. We see it in Hollywood movies where the protagonist is a villain and people laugh at him and despise the good guys. You can't aspire to ascension and be a scoundrel because you can't fool the spirit. They say in the end times all the demons would be released to test humankind, and this has created a great confusion of moral values in all those who do not have sufficient knowledge to distinguish truth from lies. The devil is the father of lies and is a specialist in distinguishing himself as an angel of light and liberator of humankind, when in reality he is an abominable tyrant. They say everything is a lie, and that only what they say is true. The word old implies absolutism and ignorance, because truth is mixed with lies, and it takes a fine line to separate the wheat from the tares. There is no chemically pure lie in this world, but mixed with truths or half-truths. Moreover, truth is a diamond with many faces. Perennial Philosophy. If all science were a lie, automobiles wouldn't work, and building bridges would fall down. If all astronomy were a lie, the movement of the stars couldn't be calculated with such precision. If all spiritual traditions were lies, there would not have been so many enlightened mystics within them. Normally, they all share a common mnemonic minimum, which is called the Perennial Philosophy, and which contains the core of truth. It was a term coined by Leibniz and developed by Aldous Huxley, among others. The Hindus call it Sanatana Dharma, or Holy Law, which is common to all traditions. Its meaning is eternal natural law, or those principles of reality that are inherent in the very nature and design of the universe. Therefore, the term Sanatana Dharma can be translated as the natural, ancient, and eternal way to the greater glory of God and the service of humankind. It can also be translated as the natural and eternal way of living. The Perennial Philosophy teaches that there are no shortcuts to heaven, that everything is based on holiness and purity of heart, compassion, humility, and wisdom, that we can use all means, but divine grace is needed, and it doesn't come to those who do not deserve it, that we can attain much wisdom, but this doesn't work unless we are as innocent as doves and as cunning as serpents, so that we are not deceived. They say there is not such thing as sin, but we all make mistakes in life, because the human condition is to err constantly, and through our mistakes we learn great lessons, like the child who learns to ride a bicycle by being beaten. When we ask for forgiveness of sins from our inner God, we are asking for it from ourselves, because the ego is a lie and our divine self is the truth. Today, we don't preach about sin and repentance because people would leave the church. I ask for forgiveness every day for my mistakes I have made in my life. A teacher was asked what his life has been like, and he answered, mistake after mistake, and that is why he achieved mastery. Holiness. There is such a confusion of ideas that some people do not understand the concept of holiness. A saint is a perfect being of a special virtue and example, free from all guilt, whose life is devoted to serving his or her own inner God and humankind, and who has the virtue of healing others on a spiritual level. They are human beings outstanding in the various spiritual traditions for their attributed special relationships with the divine, or for a particular ethical elevation. The influence of a saint transcends the sphere of his or her religion, when the acceptance of his or her morality acquires universal components. Saints are spiritual masters of the ascetic life. Holiness is an attribute of God which he confers on whom he wills according to his wisdom and goodness. The method is universal in all traditions: prayer, fasting, silence, meditation, charity, and withdrawal from worldly noise. It matters not which God you worship, for if he dwells in your heart and not in a statue, he is the only true one. It matters not the methods of attaining transcendence, because the paths to the Absolute are as infinite as God himself, and each chooses the path that best suits his needs and circumstances. Each seeks, as best as he can, his physical and spiritual survival, but many are lost for lack of discernment. Change of story. All traditions tell us that Saint Michael was the good guy and Lucifer was the bad guy, but now they want to put the villain on the altars to follow the current of the inversion of spiritual poles. My fellow journalist Juan José Benítez has always been a spiritual reference for me, and he explained clearly in one of his books what Lucifer's rebellion was. A supposed liberator of humankind who became a tyrant just like Stalin or Mao Zedong. He is now the bearer of an infernal reddish light, which gives worldly powers, and which is not the pure light of pink. They say that the fallen angels taught great things to humankind, and it is true. They taught the art of war to kill one another, the art of economics to cheat one another, the art of political deception, the art of exploiting slaves, the art of preparing poisons, the art of beautifying harlots, and various dark arts of black magic, such as necromancy, among other evils. What we are living today are the consequences of all those weak teachings. Was Jesus a Buddhist? A BBC documentary claims that Jesus was a Buddhist monk named Isa, and I have had this intuition for many years, because the Buddhist spiritual tradition is very similar to the Christian one in its essence, and because the early Christians believed in reincarnation, as the Druze in Lebanon still do today. Druze or Druze. According to official records, between 13 and 29 years of his life, there is no biblical record of Jesus' whereabouts in Palestine, but there are documents in Arabic, Hindu, and Tibetan that speak of it, which are kept secret to avoid cognitive dissonance. One Tibetan text speaks of Jesus' lost years and says that he was born during the 1st century to a poor family in Israel. The tutors in the monastery called him the Son of God, and he had achieved the highest level of enlightenment evidenced so far during his stay at the Himis monastery in Ladakh. In that community, he is recognized as the first of the 22 Buddhas, and is said to have been the greatest of the prophets to date. He is said to have been the greatest of the Dalai Lamas. The 3 wise men who visited the stable in Bethlehem on the night Jesus was born is another story related with Buddhist tradition. The tradition explains that after the last Buddhist saint of the time died, the wise men consulted the stars and then set out on a long journey in the hope of finding the baby they believed to be a reincarnation of a High Lama. Once the child reached an age when he could be taken from his parents, he was to be taken to be educated in the wisdom of Buddhism. It is believed that he was in India with the wise men from the age of 13 and was educated as a Buddhist. Another revealing claimed that Jesus was excommunicated from Hinduism and fled to the Himalayas. It was also said that Jesus had spent time teaching in many holy cities, including Jagannath, Rajagriha, and Varanasi, which led to the Brahmins to excommunicate him, fleeing to the Himalayas to continue the study of Buddhism. His crime was to criticize India's unjust caste system. True or not, what is certain is that Jesus' mission was to transform humankind. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.